If you don't have a booklet yet, please raise your hand and Elaine can bring one to you. Otherwise, I will pray and we can go from there. Oh, gracious and loving God, thank you for gathering us together, even in the snow and cold, to most importantly worship you and remind ourselves who we are here to serve. But thank you also for gathering us together as willing participants to do the work of the church. Please be with us in our conversations and guide our thoughts as we move forward to help bring this church into the future. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good morning to everyone. We don't have anything too much more complicated than a typical annual meeting, I don't think. I call this meeting to order. We do need to have a motion to adopt the agenda if anyone has looked through it and is willing to do that as of yet. Otherwise, I'll give you a minute to do it. We have a motion to accept the agenda. Do we have a second? Elaine is a second. All in favor of adopting the agenda as it's stated? Any opposed? Motion carries. First thing we need to do is review the minutes of last year's meeting, and we do need to make note of the fact that minutes were taken last year by Teddy, who has gone off to college, and we had a little difficulty finding them. So Jeremy went back through last year's meeting and through discussion recreated the minutes from last year. So if you see something in there that you don't feel is correct, you may be correct. So please review the minutes, and then we'll make a motion to accept them when we are ready. We have a motion to accept the minutes. Do we have a second? Terry seconded. All in favor of accepting the minutes as they are stated, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will start off the reports with Kathy Beal giving the treasurer's report.
Going to add one little thing to our agenda here. Every year at the annual meeting, we present the pastor with her Christmas gift check. So, Pastor Kathy, I actually have a check for you. Belated Merry Christmas. Thank you. Okay, 2020. So we're not going to start with the budget, but if you open up your book long ways and see the budget, the next, I believe it's 2 pages after that is where I'm going to start. Nope, 3 pages. I apologize. Okay, so it is the one, it's actually labeled page 8. We had Sue move the numbers around after they were already page numbered, so. It's on the top titled Zion UCC Financial Highlights. So that is these 2 pages, and then I'll tell you where I'm going next after that. So the highlights there, we just have all, not the general fund, but the improvement fund, organ fund, and memorial fund, activities balances, donations, interest, and any expenditures. I'd just like to point out expenditures out of the improvement fund. Last year we had a lot of big things. We did painting, we did lights, we did so many things to the building. So this year we did not have a lot of projects like we did last year. So what we had this year was the gutter and soffit work on the parsonage, the brick work and tuck pointing outside of the building, and then we had some concrete work on the sidewalks, which is going to help greatly whoever's out there shoveling now, and we'll all notice it and appreciate more once the spring rolls around. So the other big thing to note in the improvement fund is the deposit from the Carol Meany estate, and that a lot of that's going to be, not a lot of it, but a portion of that's going to be used for whenever we decide to do our organ restoration project. So that is sitting in the improvement fund now until we kind of see where we're at with things after that. Organ fund, not a lot of activity, more probably coming this year with this restoration project we'll be talking about coming up. The CNO Trust Fund, some interest there for 2020, and then some interest from 2019 that was reported after my annual report last year. So the end of year balance there. And then the Memorial Fund, we had some window donations, disaster donations, and unspecified donations. Going over the next page there, the financial giving report. Going across the top there, you can see 2015 to 2020. The biggest thing I want to point out on this page is if you look at 2018 to 2019 to 2020. 2018 was the last time we had a full settled pastor here. Last year, you guys probably remember me talking about the offering taking a dip, which we had anticipated. And then this last year being shut down, things could have been a lot worse than what they were, but every week Sue was still making those bank deposits. Things were coming in the mail, people were stopping in the office, people would walk by and wave to Kathy and say, hey, I'm here dropping off my offering to Sue. So thank you all for still just keeping the church going during that time. It'd be really easy to say, we were shut down for 3 months, I'm not going to church. It's easy to just not do those things when we're not here, but so the biggest thing for going forward for 2021 will be trying to get a rebound back in that offering activity back to normal levels, and hopefully with us staying in church and being here in personal attendance, that will help things too. That bottom of the page there, I don't really have anything to note, just other things you can see, donations and pass-throughs. And then if you flip one more page, that's just some more summary numbers of expenses, which will be listed on the budget as well, but just bottom line numbers. I did notice, if some of you guys are thinking I'm losing it a little bit, on the formatting from my Excel spreadsheet to when it was transferred to this final document here. Those numbers going across the top that say 2015, 16, those are not dollar figures, those are obviously supposed to be the years. And then the only other thing I wanted to point out is down at the bottom, in the center of the page, we normally have that net income and loss. This year's net income is obviously very distorted with that large money coming in from the estate. So I do have one line underneath that says net income. It's kind of standing there all alone by itself. It says 7,200. I wanted a year-to-year comparison without that giant number in there because it's really hard to compare apples to apples when we had something of that size come in. So even though we were down in offering, we didn't have as many expenditures. The fuel bill was down. We were shut down. We didn't call a full settled pastor till the very end of August. So we were 8 months without a salary, plus that year before without having a salary. And so many of our pulpit supply during the last over a year were just volunteers from all of you. And that helped immensely. And it was so nice to have the pulpit filled with familiar faces, and so that helped us as well. So even though I'm telling you, our giving was down again, just about $10,000 compared to last year, our expenses were also down as well. So, last thing on that page is just all of the balances as of December 31st in each of the checking accounts and that CD. So that is the 2020 Treasurer's Report. Is there any questions?
We will now have the trust report also given by Kathy. Oh, do we have a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented by Kathy? Beth, do we have a second? Dave? Martin in the back. All in favor of accepting the treasurer's report, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the trust report, which will also be given by Kathy.
All right, I will read this for Gail here. It is on, again, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is 8 pages in, just about 2 pages before that budget opens up in the middle. So Zion UCC, as most of you know, we have 3 trust funds, the Education, Capital, and General Trusts. In 2020, there were donations to the Educational Trust Fund, but no donations received for the General or Capital Trust funds. Each year, the Educational Trust Fund disperses 4% of the balance as of the previous year end to Zion students who apply for scholarships. 2020 recipients were Mason Hermeyer, Faith Palmer, Teddy Holthouse, Alec Armstead, Michaela Manning, Harley Holsworth, Evan Armstead, and Kayla Nolting. Each one of these students received $500 to go towards their college expenses. The Capital Trust Fund is used for improvements at Zion. Even when there are no donations to it, they do disperse 4% of that end-of-year fund balance, and that is put into the improvement fund for any projects that we have that come up during the year. And the General Trust Fund also disperses, the Improvement Trust Fund distribution was $3,860. General Trust Fund, it also distributes 4% of the previous year-end balance. This year it was $680, and that just goes into the general fund for anything that, day-to-day expenses or anything that the council votes on to as they see fit. Donations, Gail wants to mention, are always welcome. You can, mark your deposit, write on your check, and then those are actually go directly to Gail to be invested into those funds. If you have any questions, you can contact her for more details.
Do we have a motion to accept the trust report? Kyle? Do we have a second? Diane Haler? All in favor of accepting the trust report as it was presented, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item of discussion on here is our old business, which for this year includes organ restoration. We talked a little bit about that last Sunday. What we as a council have discussed several times over the course of the last year and a little bit more has been what to do with the instrument standing behind me that is a pretty large focal point of the church here. We haven't had a major failure in the last few years. We have been able to keep the organ functioning. The console over here has been pretty much left other than maintenance since about the 70s, I believe, is the last time it was really updated. What we're looking at is that some of the components in the console are getting to where they're starting to need some replacement and work, and the question now is whether to just restore it as it stands today and basically keep the organ as it is, or move into what they're recommending, which is a movement forward with a computer in there, changing out the keyboard and the components that drive the organ. The pipe work and everything would still work the same, but we would be able to record what is played on the console over here, save it, and then for events or funerals or things where we either can't get an organist or just decide that it's simpler to play the organ without a person at the console, we would be able to have organ music. The cost, originally it was presented that it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000, but like all things, when the actual bid came back, it was closer to $55,000. We did look at another option with another pipe organ company. That option came back much higher. We could easily spend $250,000 to up to $500,000 if we took the advice or the options of either or company. They'll all do as much as you want them to do. But we have elected to say that we are pretty confident in leaving the way the church looks. They would do a little bit of updating to make it so that tuning the organ was a little easier. We tried to get up in there in order to look closely at things when one of the companies was here, and it is very difficult to get up there. Even Jeremy and I, who are probably on the smaller side for the church here, couldn't crawl up in there without feeling like we were going to step on pipes and change things. So there is definitely some difficulty in dealing with the organ as it stands, but rather than spending a lot of money to change that, we feel like we can continue to work with that. The question we are proposing today is mainly if the church wants to move forward with approving the finances necessary, knowing that we have the Carol Meany estate, which will help to pay for it, but we would like the church to step forward and help with the cost of it. We will probably do some type of a fund drive if we do elect to move forward, so that we don't just take all the money out of the improvement fund. Is there any discussion? Do we have any comments or concerns about the project as it has been stated? Yes, our recommendation at this point has been, unless we find out anything new, which I don't believe we will, our recommendation is to refurbish this portion with what needs to be done, and it would be tuned again. The wiring and everything coming to this console seems to be good and reusable. What would happen is the console would be taken back to their shop. They would strip out the old components of it, replace the keyboard, and place the computer inside of it that is the new driver of what controls the organ. And he said it would take about a month, and then it would come back. Am I correct in that, Jeremy?
Basically, what's sent to the organ now is all kinds of
There's little wires in there that,
tons of wires, with a bunch of cables, like 5 cables about this big. Each have probably 50 or 100 wires in them that go from there. And it's all mechanically. When you press a key, it causes something else to happen, and then it sends a signal to the.
to the little solenoid that opens.
So basically, we're just ascending and it's changing. Sound and everything is the same. But it won't be mechanical like it was. And Barb, we were here also when we talked when that was here. Do you have any thoughts about any of it?
Mhm.
I've been working around problems with this for maybe like 5 years. Little things that go wrong, so I can't play this song or have music that's set. And I know that there are quite a few organists or people that come in that won't play it because of all the little problems with that. So a revamp would be good. I think we'll get a lot more use out of it. Going forward, if you want to continue to have the organ, you need to do something.
Honestly, I'm not really sure that there was a cheaper option than the $54,000 unless somebody comes in that says, I have a whole bunch of used parts, and we redo it with leftovers from somebody else's project, and in that case, we will most likely have problems very quickly again. And I don't think that's probably what anybody wants to see happen. So as a council, yes, our recommendation is to move forward with redoing the console and leaving this as it stands, but they will check everything in there. The solenoids and all the things that control the pipes would be reworked and checked over, but the sound would stay the same and the look would stay the same. So. Well, I believe he said it would take him about a month with the console away. And timeline-wise, it'll really depend on when we tell them that we have approved it and we sign a contract with him. As of the last time we talked to him, it sounded like something that could probably happen within the first 6 months of this year, unless other churches have stepped in and he's filled his time and couldn't do it until later. So best case scenario, I think, is that we would have it done by middle of the summer, and hopefully worst case scenario is that it would be at least done by the time we are standing here in a year for annual meeting again. So, any other questions or discussion? Do we have a second on that? Thea Teese. All in favor of approval of up to the estimate of $55,000 for moving forward with the organ project, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
John, stuff always comes up, just like the things that we didn't realize were in there. Do we want to limit ourselves to that? I think that we did.
Well,
And have to meet again.
okay.
I offer a, I don't know what you call it, amendment or something to the motion to give the council or organ committee that we have working on this a little more leeway, so.
Does anybody have a figure that they would, I mean, he's presented us with that, but like all things, original presentation was that it would be about 30. Does anybody have a number that you would like to present as the ceiling, or do you want to just say that we've accepted that we're going to do the project and it will be up to the council's discretion that we move forward unless something comes forward that is unexpected?
John, I think all of us would agree we've got a very nice church. The organ is a very important part of our services. The timing, I think, for this project couldn't be better with the amount of money that's in the improvement fund with the recent gift. I trust the judgment of the council. I would just offer, I think if you're looking for authorization from the church, I would just move that we authorize you to use the money as you see fit to make the improvements necessary.
Okay. Well, let's vote on a new motion that the organ project be completed under the financial discretion of the council. Do we have a second for that? Cheryl Prestman. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. New business, we need to approve the 2021 budget with Kathy.
Now you can all open up your long ways to the center. Sue was so excited. She told me she got it to print perfectly in the center and we weren't flipping page to page. So what we're going to be focusing on, you can see on the right-hand side there are some gray shaded columns. You can see what we had budgeted in 2020 and what the actual numbers were. I'll hit some points on those, but I more want to go over what you're approving, which is that very last column, the 2021 budget. So first section there, we just hired a new custodian a couple months ago here, Kevin. His salary is currently at $12.50 an hour. Going down fuel, electricity, water, sewer, trash, no changes there. Property insurance, I just wanted to note that we get billed quarterly for that, and there has been, they've told me there will be an increase for 2021, which amounted, the quarterly amounts added up to $2,560 a year increased. So that amount budgeted is increased to take that into consideration. Next thing, no changes. I just had noted there in the building maintenance section why that was over budget this year. We did that cement work and the brick work and then a couple other little projects that came up. The other thing, I wanted to note the last two categories in that system. You'll notice from 2015 over to 2019, they're blank. I just created those this year. So elevator expense prior, that had always been thrown in the building maintenance section. And since it is something that can be specified and given a name to when the building maintenance only has, a little bit in there, if 1100 is going to the elevator, I just wanted it separated out there so we have that as a new tagline going forward of what to expect for elevator expenses. And then the sound system. We've had little things come up here and there. Prior, that was all put under worship category expenses, but they're, as we move on, we've gotten recording equipment, we've got new cords and plugs and cameras and things like that, which going forward, when we're doing these virtual things, are going to not go away, they're going to be more. So I thought it was a good idea to have another way to track that more specifically. Down to the Ministry of God's Word section, I have a note there. We hired Pastor Kathy on August 24th. We hired her at an amount of $45,000 a year, just between two of the conference guidelines section recommendations. And the conference guidelines, made their annual 2% raise, which they usually do. So in order to not get behind there when we do have to take that next step up category, we are recommending a 2% raise up to $46,000 for an annual salary, which those numbers also affect the offset, the pension, and then I do have an amount in there for the insurance, which we all know health insurance goes up every year. That never gets cheaper. We've still got a mileage and car allowance there. We've got continuing education allowance. And then parsonage expense, we've always just got something in there. This last year it was over a little bit. We had that large gutter project. And then pulpit supply, I did increase that budget, and that reason being that in the call agreement, we have allowed for a certain number of vacation days, continuing ed days, so I just wanted an amount to be in there to cover if all of those Sundays were needed, and that would amount to that $1,600. Ministry of God's Music, nothing much to note there. We've got Barb's salary at $100 per service. Any organ expenses, which are normally just annual tuning things and such, but this year obviously we'll be having new capital campaign fund for that, as we just mentioned. And the music expense, we have an annual copyright expense or license. Christian education, not a lot to note there. We did purchase more Bibles this year for the preschool third graders that were presented earlier this year. Down to the mission and evangelism, the only category that was over budget this year was the mission and evangelism section, and that was our costs to set up our website and get our initial domain name and things like that. So I think if you haven't checked out our website, go and check it out. We've got a lot of good feedback. Try to keep it up to date. The services are posted on there. The sermons are posted on there. So if anybody can't get here, you can look it up. You can read it. If you prefer to watch it and listen to it, you can watch it on YouTube. It's been great for when we, haven't been able to meet in person. Office and administration, we have secretary salary. We are recommending a raise for Sue's hourly wage from $14 to $14.50 an hour. Treasurer salary at $150 a month. The accounting and bookkeeping section, that was over budget just by barely $100. Normally, we hadn't updated QuickBooks since, I think, 2014 when I took this over from Dave. So QuickBooks finally said, we're not going to support this old version anymore, and we did have to buy an updated version of QuickBooks. And then also, I had not purchased checks since we switched over. The QuickBooks checks we had lasted since then. So that was why we were some higher category expenses there. The office equipment, we had purchased a new laptop for Pastor Kathy, and then some other small office equipment items fell into there. And nothing else changed in that category. And then finally, down to other expenses, nothing changes there. We have our payroll taxes and workers' comp insurance. So not too many categories over budget. You never can foresee exactly what's all going to come up in a year, but do the best. And the council and I talked this over, and we've kind of, have a little catch-all category for everything that we're pretty confident that this will be sustainable for our 2021 budget. Are there any questions on any of the budget items for 2021 or any of the expense categories for 2020? Yep, so Pastor Kathy talked to her, and that was taken care of. Yep. Any other questions? And they don't have to be questions just now. If you guys go home and look at this and you have anything, call me, find me, have Sue leave me a note. I'm always open to showing and talking it through, any questions at any time during the year. Just don't ever hesitate to contact me.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Kathy has done a very, very thorough and wonderful job of taking care of finances for the church since Dave has handed the reins over to her. We've much appreciated it and look forward to her helping at meetings. Do we have a motion to approve the annual budget of the budget of 2021? Terry and Elaine is a second. All in favor of accepting the proposed budget for 2021, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item of new business is the election of new members to the Council of Ministries. We've had Terry Osterly volunteer to serve a 3-year term, joyfully and thankfully. And Connie Gordon, who could not be here today, has also said that she would accept a 2-year term to fill a partial term, which we have the need of filling. So is there any discussion about council members moving forward? Do we have a motion to approve the installation of Terry and Connie to the council? Kathy and Bill? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Terry. We look forward to having you on the council. We're going to have a fun year. We're going to make council so much fun. The next time we need new members, there's fighting. There's fighting to be on the council. That's my personal goal for this next year, is to have council so much fun that we have people who are they're campaigning in July. The last item of new business which we want to discuss is the sound system here at the church. And the sound system that's in here was put in by DB Sound, I believe is the name of the company, about 30 years ago. And obviously, if you can hear me right now, the system is still working to some degree. For certain people it's better than for others. We were going to have 2 different estimates available for the congregation to hear about today, but the second one is not going to present until this week. We've already approved and are moving forward with the organ project. The question that we want you to be basically thinking about moving forward is, how do you feel you're able to hear during worship service on Sunday morning? We know there are more and more people who are using hearing aids or devices in order to be able to hear better. And the question is if what we have is working for people or not. Based on what we've seen so far, we know there are a lot of things that can be done to improve the sound system, but it's up to the congregation to decide whether that is necessary at this time or can wait, or what we should do. Do we have any discussion from anybody who's here on how you feel about the sound system as it stands today? Does anybody in here feel like they have a hard time hearing and they blame the sound system?
I don't blame them for that. No, the one point I want to make is the speakers at least need to be, the improvement of the speakers would be great. Because sitting here, I can see the speakers I have no problem. Sitting up where we have the current sound, where Terry adjusts, is a different sound completely.
Mm-hmm.
Because from back there, the chandelier gets in the way of the sound. And you can tell the difference when I'm standing back there versus sitting here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have the little packs that we offer to people for hearing assistance during services. I think as of right now that system is working okay, but that's something that we have to, that's a system that isn't a stagnant thing either. That system has to be worked on. Packs stop working. The system needs to be fixed occasionally. So we're gonna, as a council, we're gonna listen to the second estimate coming forward. I would ask everybody in here to talk to members of the church, think about it, consider this issue. It's not as expensive as the organ system would be. We're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $35,000, $40,000. So everything that you want to do, even if it is for the church, is expensive. Sometimes I think it's more expensive if it's for the church. So we need to, I guess, kind of be thinking about this, be praying about it, be asking people. If you have strong feelings about something, we want to know about it. Otherwise, just kind of be expecting that we will be letting you know what we find out from these, from the second estimate that we're going to receive this week. And we'll let you guys know what we're finding out, and we'll proceed as the church wants us to. So, is there any other discussion or anything that anyone wants to talk about? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? Beth, do we have a second? Rick Larson? All in favor of adjournment, please say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Please read over the annual report, look through the reports that are in there, and don't be afraid to volunteer if you see something in there that excites you. Thank you.